My name is Adrian Heyman, and I'm a stutterer. Kind of reminds you of if you are an alcoholic or you're recovering, and when you go to a session of Alcoholics Anonymous, you say, "Hello, I am so-and-so, and I'm an alcoholic." You have to admit it. You have to understand what the concept of what it is and take responsibility for it. Now, I'm not sure if all that goes in with stuttering, but you have to realize that there are some people who will say they've stopped stuttering, and for the most part, I believe I have as well. But every so often, there is something that reminds me of who I am and how I have to keep it under control, or else it manifests itself in the most inopportune of times. I do remember when I was younger, and I had no idea how to control it. It was something that effectively blocked me from speaking to anyone because I was just so ashamed. And I didn't want to incur the ridicule and laughter of my classmates. Those who knew me during that time, I've talked to a few. They don't really say anything about it, but I know that they've had to have dealt with it when talking to me, because essentially that's what happened. If you talk to me any length of time, you know that I couldn't get my words out without stuttering. Sometimes it was so bad, I resorted to beating things, try to get a rhythm, I just didn't really know what I was trying to do, but I had to get the words out, but I didn't know how to do it. And it hurt because people either would dismiss me or they would laugh at me. And for a person whose self-esteem wasn't that high in the first place, being laughed at was, of course, it's made it even worse. I don't blame them now. I don't. Because essentially, it sounded funny. I even remarked to someone, I forget who it was, maybe it was my wife, that sounded like the original Porky Pig. You know, if you ever seen the character Porky Pig, he stuttered. He still went through things, still completed what he was trying to do, but his words were very hard to get out. And it was meant as an element of comedy. And I understand it sounds funny. It does. But to the person who is saying it and is not doing it for comedic effect, it's not that they're laughing with you, they're laughing at you. Which is why I was so surprised that the Lord called me to be a minister. Because at some time a minister will have to say something, speak something, whether you're preaching, whether you're teaching, no matter what you're doing, you have to say something to other people because you're serving. You can't serve in silence. You have to serve God and be able to communicate with other people. So the surprising thing to me was the Lord called me. That's the one thing I thought that would never happen until it did. And I didn't want people to know about ministry because I didn't want to speak a whole lot. Because I knew that if I spoke any length of time, the cat's out of the bag. I stutter. And people would laugh at me. Now, my mother, who was concerned, took me to speech therapy. I'm not sure how many people knew that if I was absent for a few hours on a particular day from school, I was at speech therapy. And they would go over procedures, they would go over techniques. The one thing I remember was they had this playback machine that if you talked anywhere past what I'm talking about, how I'm talking to you right now, then what would happen is that the machine would play back and it would make you stumble over your words. So it forced you, and then you had to hear it. You had to hear it in your ear. So it was pretty disconcerting until they told you have to slow down and make everything fluid as if you're breathing and so on. And that actually helped quite a bit. Still stuttered some, because by the time I met my wife, I was still stuttering. Some people in their family was, and this is not anything to be upset with them, because I'm not, but say, him? You're going out with him? You have done better. Oh my. But wife at length said, stop it, just stop it. You don't have to do it, just stop it. Because even though I was better by the time I got to her, I was still doing it. And it wasn't because she was trying to force anything, but she was concerned. And she felt that stuttering was something that, okay, if you can try to stop as much as possible, then why aren't you doing it? And so I purposely then began to use my techniques and just began to think of things before I said them. Because many times you stutter because you're thinking of something, you have a particular thought, then your mind changes and your mouth can't follow it. So it stumbles over. It's like someone changed the path. You know how those cartoons where you're running down this road, or driving down this road, and then one character paints the road to go into this tunnel, which really wasn't a tunnel, it was the side of a mountain or something like that. And the change was real quick. And I just could not make the change. So I stuttered. But over the years, God has kept me. He's watched over me. He allowed me to have my wife, which essentially was one that she didn't forbid me to speak, but she said, are you ready for it? I said, yes, I am. Are you ready to speak it? Yes, I am. Because she knew that if the Lord was anointing me, I wouldn't stutter. Because the words would come out, and I was depending totally upon what He has told me to do, and not about anything else. So I have a special affinity to those who do stutter. And I find myself, okay, I can see myself in the shoes of the people who were listening to me, and also could see myself in the shoes of the person who was doing it, which was me. So with others, I heard others stutter. My attempt is to be patient. So I wanted them to be patient with me. I tried to maybe even help out. If they're having trouble with the word, if I think I know, then I'll put it out there and possibly that's the one. If not, then I apologize and I wait until they finish. But My experiences as a stutterer didn't really know that God would open up a door. Not in that particular fashion, not in that particular way. Because as you stutter, you find that you become much more introverted. And I am an introvert. I am an introvert by heart. If you ask me to go meet someone, I have to get up to that to do it, because I'm more comfortable by myself. That's how I regain my energy. And I learned something about that too, that introverts can be great speakers, great ministers, great motivators, but they need time to recharge. And they recharge by retreating to a time where they're alone. And so they can recharge their mental energy and so on. So by the time we see them again, they're ready to go at it for another day. That's pretty much how I am. I have to retreat, getting to a place where I can just relax, unload, chill out. But stuttering was what not necessarily it made me, but it accentuated my natural tendency of being introverted. So I became quite introverted. And how my wife was able to put up with me, I don't know. But I also have the ability to be empathetic towards those who are similar in that way. Because I understand why there may be something that essentially that's caused them to become introverted. In any case, stuttering is a condition. And not everybody can stop it. Not everyone can stop it. So I'm asking you as saints, if you do meet up with someone and you find that they are having difficulty speaking, don't try to rush them. It only will make them more nervous. They may make them resent you. And I know that's not what you're trying to do. You want to be able to hear the words out. And it sometimes can be a bit taxing as you're waiting. But it won't be for forever. So if you allow them to speak and you allow them to hear you, or you allow yourself to hear them, I'll put it that way, then eventually the thoughts will come out. Eventually you will understand what was in their mind. And the conversation can actually be two ways. So whenever I meet someone who is a stutterer, I have that compassion, because it's not something that they want to do. I feel it's a part of them. They're not putting on a show. I think I was blessed by God myself. I was blessed. I was very blessed. But even now, even every so often, I stutter. And I have to catch myself. And that's just what I end up doing. But it doesn't stop me from ministering. It doesn't stop me from doing the work of God. Not only that, it led to me being a writer. Somehow I had to put my thoughts somewhere. Couldn't say anything because, again, I was afraid of being ridiculed. I was afraid of how I would sound. So I began to write. First it was poems. Just write whatever I felt. And the poems captured what I felt at that particular time or what I wanted to get out. Then from there, because I had to do it at school, essays, snippets of things. Because essentially, if I was going to do well in English, I had to write an essay, or an essay maybe in history or whatever. But as I said, it allowed me to express myself. Even later on during college and going to Bible colleges, in writing any essays, I tried to put myself, I wrote it according to how I felt, no matter what the subject was. I'm not saying I put myself into it, but I wrote it in terms of how I felt. And so I wanted to make sure that I did it correctly and make sure I did my best job on the essays. And then came books. Being able to sit for a while and think of things. And I've actually ended up publishing 3, and now actually I've changed publishers, and there are more books that will be on the way. But it all started because I could not talk. I remember my grandmother on my father's side praying, constantly praying for me. Constantly praying for me that the Lord will take away my stuttering. And in fact, he did. In effect, he did. Maybe not all the way, but I think that's just to remind myself that it's still there, but God has it under control. And that's the key. God placed my mouth under his control. That's why I can speak to you right now. That's why I could say something. That's why I'm not stumbling over my words even as we speak now. Even though I'm speaking off the cuff, which is probably the worst thing for a stutterer, because a stutterer, usually you want something planned so I can think about what I'm going to say before I say it, so I can read it and have a cadence that is smooth and rhythmic so that it comes out smooth and not da-da-da-da-da, because that's when I start stuttering. But doing something like this, of course, nothing is written out. You may think so, but it's not. This is all in my head. And as I'm thinking is how I'm bringing it out. But the fact that I'm not stuttering right now is, I believe it's amazing. And I give it all to God. But as I wrap this up, I just want you to think, to remember, please don't ridicule anyone because of their speech. They're working on it. Sometimes they know what's happening and they know it hurts. Don't make the hurt any worse than what it is. Be compassionate with them. Wait for them to finish, and it's all right. Don't laugh at them. One of the reasons why I guess I was pretty upset with our current president is because he made fun of people. He made fun of their disabilities. He made fun of their ailments. And I remember he even made fun of our former president's speech problems, that he stutters. President Joe Biden stutters. And me knowing as much as anyone, because of the experience, felt that that was a place that one should never go. even if it's your political opponent, sorry, your political opponent, I can't even pronounce things right, opponent, but to have enough respect not to make fun of them as they're speaking. I can talk all about that, but the idea is about my journey right here, my journey. And the journey is still being made. There's still things that come up that cause me to not be as fluent with my words, and inevitably I'll stumble over them and I'll stutter. But that if the Lord can bless me and put me in a position where I can communicate my words with the minimum of what's taking place that my body wants to do, which is stutter. If he can do that for me, if he can do that for me, then certainly, saints of God, he can do it for you. You just have to trust him. You just have to lean on him. And you may have to work on what you're saying. Again, if you are stuttering out there, try this. And it may sound a little forced at first, but once you get better, then you understand the concept of it. But to slow down and to maybe even make things into a melody, because song sung, I don't stutter when I'm singing. I never stutter when I'm singing, because everything flows out smoothly, like a song comes out naturally. Then try and do that. You see how I changed my voice? Now, it may not be comfortable because it's not you, and I understand. I remember going through this, and it wasn't me, so I just couldn't do it the way I wanted to do it. But the more you can get things out this way, then when you start speaking in your more regular voice, you're able to actually control that as well. The key here is to understand where you are. Don't dismiss that part of you. Being a stutterer is part of you. That's who you are. But improving yourself, it does take time. It does take a commitment. But you'll be able to do it. I guarantee you, you will be able to do it. May God bless you. May he keep you. Have a wonderful day, saints. And remember, support is always better than ridicule. God bless you in Jesus' name.